space rendezvous promising more groundbreaking breakthroughs. China's first female astronaut, inspiring more to follow. The Tiangong 1 has been orbiting the Earth for months. Is the Shenzhou 9 docking the dawn of China's permanent space presence? Find out the answers on CCTV News special live coverage of China's most ambitious manned space mission to date. Good afternoon and welcome to our special coverage on CCTV News. I'm Zhou in Beijing. In just a few hours from now, China's manned spacecraft Shenzhou 9 will dock with the Space Lab module Tiangong 1. Since the successful launch at dusk at Saturday from Jiuquan, Shenzhou 9 has been orbiting in space for more than 40 hours and the mission is going on as planned. It is gradually approaching the Tiangong 1 and will make a fully automated docking in just an hour and a half. The space docking is the most crucial part of Shenzhou 9 mission this time. For a better understanding of how the Shenzhou 9 crew are carrying out their tasks and what daily lives are like for the astronauts in space, we are joined by our panelists here in the studio, Dr. Yang Yuguang from the China Aerospace Science and Industry Cooperation, and Zhai Zheng'an, Deputy Chief Engineer from the Beijing Space Information Relay Technology Research Center, and also Professor John Lewis from the University of Arizona. And later on, my colleague Wang Mangmang will be taking us through the science and technology behind the Shenzhou 9 mission. But first, Shenzhou 9 spaceship has successfully completed its last orbital change and is now ready for rendezvous and docking with Tiangong 1 lab module. The spacecraft has already circled the Earth 24 times since entering the orbit. Our reporter Bi Jianlu has this report.
Officials at Beijing's Aerospace Control and Command Center look on as Shenzhou 9 draws closer and closer to the Tiangong 1 lab module.
The instruments on Shenzhou 9 show that the orbital change is complete. The spaceship is working normally.
After the fourth orbit change, Shenzhou 9 is closing in on Tiangong 1. On the horizontal axis, it is 52 kilometers away. On the vertical axis, it is 50 kilometers below the Space Lab. The operation so far has needed one less orbital change than its predecessor, Shenzhou 8, a sign that China's space technology and expertise are improving.
I removed one orbital change from the originally planned 5. This is out of consideration for the safety of the astronauts and the operation of the spacecraft. It also means an improvement in the safety and reliability of the overall flight control process.
The crew are in constant contact with Command and Control Center. That way, ground control will have up-to-date information on their physical and working conditions. Once it reaches the optimum docking position, Shenzhou 9 will perform China's first ever manned space docking. Bi Jianlu, CCTV.
And for more about China's first experimental space lab module Tiangong 1, let's turn over to my colleague Wang Mangmang. With the help of our consultant Professor Wu Ji, we will bring you more on the technical aspects of the mission.
Thanks very much, Soyue. Today we're very glad to have Professor Wu Ji joining us in our program. Professor Wu is the Director General of the National Space Science Center of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. It's a pleasure to have you in the program.
Hello.
Professor Wu and I will be helping you visualize some complicated concepts about the Tiangong 1 through our illustrations. So this is Tiangong 1 Space Laboratory Module. It has a really beautiful name, the Heavenly Palace.
Yes, it is the prototype of future Chinese space station program, and the Chinese space station program will be finished by 2022. And here we are right now is on the second step of Chinese manned space program, and the second step is going to get a breakthrough of rendezvous and docking technology.
And we can see, different from the Shenzhou 9 spacecraft, which has 3 modules, the Tiangong 1 has only 2. There's the laboratory compartment at the front and the service compartment at the back.
Here you can see in the back side is the service modular, and it will provide all the power, and it's also a place that all the equipment, it doesn't need room temperature, will be put there. And inside this part is the laboratory compartment, and here we have as much space as possible to give to the astronaut to do experiments. Inside the room, it is room temperature, and air pressure is normal air pressure, so it's very comfortable.
Well, as we mentioned, the Tiangong 1 is designed to stay in orbit for 2 years, and that means it has to deal with many different, complicated, and sometimes dangerous space environments. And of course, temperature is one of those variables.
Yes, here you can see that on the dark side, which is when the spacecraft rotating around the Earth and in the shadow of the Earth, and the temperature will drop down quickly, and it can drop down to minus 100 degrees centigrade. And but on the other side, when you are rotating to the sun and illuminated by the sun, the temperature can go up very quickly, up to 150 degrees centigrade very easily.
And Professor Wu, there's another incident that happens very often in space. That's the debris, and they pose a really potential danger for the spacecraft, for any operating spacecraft like the Tiangong 1. So let's see what happens.
Yes, this is a very dangerous situation, because around the Earth there are many space debris. Some are nature, some are man-made space, not used spacecraft, or the rocket stages. But for the smaller ones, for the size less than 1 millimeters, and the surface material can protect the Tiangong 1, because this has already been tested on the ground. But for the larger ones, we have to lift the orbit to avoid collision, because all the larger ones has been already put in the database, and the ground engineers calculate the collision probabilities every day and give warnings to the control center.
Well, thank you very much for your introduction, Professor Wu. So, Zhou Yue, that's all we have for the Tiangong 1. It's now back to you.
Well, thank you, Mang, for your introduction, and Professor Wu Ji. And now, through this virtual reality demonstration, we will take a look at how the space vehicles come close to one another and finally have a combination. Well, Tiangong 1, the target vehicle, has been flying around the Earth in the elliptical orbit for quite some time. And we will take a look at this later on in our program. But first, let's talk about the environment the astronauts have been facing. It's actually a very unforgiving environment for the astronauts to live and work. There are many challenges living on board a space station. And now let's take a look at what is ahead for the astronauts working in space.
Safely into orbit. The first challenge of liftoff may be over, but many more lie ahead. The trip into space for these astronauts is far from a romantic flight of fancy. Their safety is the mission's #1 priority.
Building a manned spacecraft presents many more challenges than unmanned spacecraft. The most important thing is to keep the astronauts in a safe environment when they are in space.
The environment in outer space is a near vacuum. If a human was to be exposed to the vacuum of space, the body's fluids would boil, and the air inside the human body would expand very quickly. It would mean instant death. Beyond the protection of the Earth's atmosphere and geomagnetic field, astronauts only have their spaceship and space suits to protect them from the constant bombardment of cosmic rays. The intense radiation would quickly lead to cancer, cataracts, and neurological disorders. Space debris presents another serious challenge. Floating around the planet are hundreds of satellites, as well as fragments of spacecraft, tiny particles, and equipment left by astronauts. And they're all travelling at speeds of hundreds of kilometers per hour. A collision with just one tiny particle could be fatal.
Space debris and micrometeors are huge threats to manned spacecraft.
Spending long periods in zero gravity also presents a major threat to an astronaut's health.
The microgravity environment in space creates problems for human bones, which result in calcium loss.
So with all the problems facing life in outer space, any manned spacecraft has to provide astronauts with a living environment that mimics the Earth. The cabin in the spacecraft must keep a safe and stable temperature, as well as an Earth-like pressure and humidity. Astronauts must be constantly shielded from the sun's radiation, and they have to have facilities for daily exercise to keep their muscles and bones from deteriorating away from the Earth's gravity. Matt Stoddard, CCTV.
Well, if the rendezvous and docking is successful, then China's 3 astronauts will be taking the first-time mission into the orbital module Tiangong 1. But what is it like inside? Let's take a look at the module from the training center.
The modules are divided into 2 parts: the experimental module of the Tiangong 1 aircraft and the orbital module of Shenzhou 9 spacecraft. After the modules meet, astronauts will enter the Tiangong 1 through the return capsule.
From the orbital module, we can see the overall view of the experimental module in Tiangong 1. The front door of Shenzhou 9 spacecraft and the door of Tiangong 1 will be opened after docking. Astronauts can then enter Tiangong 1.
The narrow orbital module is filled with inhabitable facilities and experimental machine for astronauts. Astronauts will open 3 cabin doors before stepping onto the aircraft and then conducting research.
Now the research devices have not been opened, so the module looks wide. But in reality, the spacecraft will bring various experimental devices and exercise equipment onto the aircraft. It will become very crowded. The astronauts will need to sleep there.
The Shenzhou 9 spacecraft wears the fairing of Changzheng 2F when it is launched, protecting the device as it ascends out of the atmosphere, which can help astronauts in the event of an emergency. Normally, the fairing of a launch vehicle is used to protect spacecrafts from the impact of aerodynamic force, but for the Changzheng 2F, an aspect of the fairing is the escape system. It will support the escape structure. If problems occur up to 120 seconds after the rocket launch, astronauts can use the escape tower to head back to land in the return capsule. The 4 great fins on the fairing will unfold to ensure the stability of the rocket in the event of an emergency. Snan, CCTV.
Well, it will be 1.5 hours away from the docking and rendezvous, and for that, let's talk to our reporter Ayang, who is standing by at the Beijing Aerospace Command and Control Center. So, good afternoon, Ayang.
Afternoon, Zoe.
Well, we know probably Shenzhou 9 is going to be 5 kilometers away from the target vehicle Tiangong 1. What is the latest? What have you heard?
Well, as we speak now, the distance between the 2 spacecraft has actually greatly shortened. As we can see from the screen, the distance has now shortened from the 5,000 meters about an hour ago to the current 400 meters. And in the next few minutes, if everything goes to plan, the distance between them will even shorten more to about 30 meters, and that's when the rendezvous will complete. And when the 2 spacecraft becomes much closer to each other, that also means the 2 of them are traveling at really great speed. And if I do remember this correctly, the speed can be up to 280,000 kilometers per second. And that, incidentally, is about 100 times faster than a race car. So that means precision is vital in the docking and rendezvous process, because one small fault could lead to a collision. But last year, China had already had a technology breakthrough, and we had already had a very successful unmanned rendezvous and automatic docking. And later, we will also see the second time for China to operate a manned automatic docking with the Tiangong 1 Zoe.
And Ayan, you mentioned both modes, automatic and manual modes. What is the differences between automatic rendezvous and docking and manual one?
Well, I'd say both methods require a lot of precision, but from the screen there, if you can see the three astronauts, Liu Wang is sitting on the left of the screen, and in about 1 week's time, when he performs the manual docking, he will swap seat to sit in the middle, and a lot of accuracy and flexibility is required of him. And human control is vital, because if any machine problems occur in any of the missions, then the human must take over the control and be able to look after and take care of everything from there. And as we can see there, sitting in the middle is the commander Jing Haipeng, and he had been one of the previous missions in space for 3 days, and he said last time he was in space, he felt as if the head and eyes were swollen, and it was as if one was standing upside down. So you can see that a lot of when the astronauts are in space, they can actually have to deal with a lot of situations, and they have to live and work with that head over heels sensation for almost 10 days. So I have to say a lot of hard work is required. So yeah.
And it's lucky for Jing Haipeng to have one experience under his belt. Thank you, Ayang, for that. Well, Ayang has talked about this is not the first time China conducted rendezvous and docking. Just last year, there was a successful test. That's between Tiangong 1 and Shenzhou 8, and that is an automatic rendezvous and docking. And now let's take back the maneuver last year.
Craft module weighing 8 tons was brought into orbit by the Long March 2 FT-1 rocket from a launch center in western China. It was the 147th launch for the Long March series rocket, and also the 8th launch in China's manned spaceflight project. 20 minutes later, Tiangong 1 entered its precise orbit. Meanwhile, Shenzhou 8, the spacecraft that would dock with the Tiangong 1, was on standby. On September 30th, Tiangong 1 went into a near-circular orbit from its initial elliptical orbit. A month later, Tiangong 1 was orbiting at just over 340 kilometers above the Earth, where the docking was to take place. Shenzhou 8, also weighing 8 tons, blasted off aboard the Long March 2F rocket from the same launch pad on November 1st. The spacecraft would be tasked with China's first docking mission. It was moving towards Tiangong 1 after entering orbit and splitting from its rocket. The rendezvous between Shenzhou 8 and Tiangong 1 would make China the third country in the world to independently master the technology of automatic space docking. It was no easy task. Shenzhou 8 would travel 1.3 million kilometers and make changes in its orbit and speed as it approached Tiangong 1. At just past 11 p.m. Beijing time on November 2nd, Shenzhou 8 arrived about 52 kilometers below Tiangong 1. The journey was reached in no time, as the spacecraft was traveling about 28,000 kilometers per hour. Still orbiting at 343 kilometers above the Earth, Shenzhou 8, automatically controlled, was approaching the target object gradually. Back at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center, everything was going to plan, but the atmosphere was still tense. At 1:23 a.m. on November 3rd, Shenzhou 8 arrived at the station point 30 meters from Tiangong 1. After the command center made confirmation on its flight status, Shenzhou 8 was approaching Tiangong 1 at a speed of 0.2 meters per second. The docking had begun. The two spacecrafts traveling at 7,800 meters per second were to meet while hovering in the same orbit, and that required precision down to the last centimeter. 20 meters, 10 meters, 1 meter, half meter. The distance narrowed gradually. After many technical movements and adjustments, Shenzhou 8 launched its docking hook and tightly clinched the passive hook of Tiangong 1. The docking was a success. After being docked for just under 2 weeks, on November 14th, the two spacecraft separated. Shortly after, Tiangong 1 and Shenzhou 8 docked again for the second time. And on November 17th, Shenzhou 8 began its re-entry to the Earth's surface. Shortly after, the space module successfully landed in the Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region.
天宫1号与神舟8号交会对接任务 取得圆满成功。
To mark the successful mission, the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, the State Council, and the CPC Central Military Commission sent their congratulations. The docking of Tiangong 1 and Shenzhou 8 marks a big breakthrough in China's manned space flight technology, and an important step in China's ambitious plans to explore deep space.
Welcome back to our special broadcast on CCTV News about China's manned space mission. And today we'll look at this through a virtual reality demonstration about how the space vehicles come close and form a union. Well, about the target vehicle, Tiangong 1 has been orbiting in an elliptical orbit, that is with the perigee of 200 kilometers and the apogee of 330 kilometers. It will be moving in this orbit and then undergo a maneuver and change into an orbital that is almost circular. And then it will be vectored by the Beijing Aerospace Command Center to turn around and waiting for the arrival of Shenzhou 9. But Shenzhou 9 is just like a car chase, only it has taken place in the space, and also it is in orbit. Well, Shenzhou 9 has to undergo 5 orbit maneuvers to get close to Tiangong 1. This is just a demonstration of one orbit maneuvering, and finally the spacecrafts will come close. And let's look at this through this demonstration. The two vehicles, that's Shenzhou 9 and Tiangong 1, will undergo 4 distances, 5-kilometer parking point, and then it will come even closer to 400-meter parking point. And then they will come even closer to 140-meter parking point. And the final stop before they have contact, a 30-meter parking point. And after that is the contact, what we call, and by contact it actually divided into 4 stages. Basically it is capturing, buffering, alignment, and finally it's the docking. And they will form a solid connection and fly in combination. And then the astronauts will open the hatches and enter Tiangong 1, the target vehicle. Of course, by then we can call this a complete success of China's first manned docking mission. And then they will fly in this combination for a couple of days until they perform another test in a couple of days with manual mode. Well, actually, we know this is the first time that China is conducting a manned rendezvous and docking mission, and with that, we are one step closer to building our own space station in the sky. Let's take a look.
Shenzhou 9 departed from its carrier rocket 10 minutes after blasting off. The spacecraft then settled on its orbit, starting its 2-day journey chasing the Tiangong 1 space lab. Engineers controlled the first phase of the chase from the ground. Shenzhou 9 was directed to perform 4 or 5 separate maneuvers within 24 hours, bringing it within 100 kilometers of Tiangong 1. As the spacecraft edged closer, its onboard sensor took over to guide its movement. The spacecraft had to pause 5 times to check its status before docking. The 2 vehicles are set to first perform an automatic docking. Astronauts will cross Shenzhou 9's orbital module and re-entry module to board the space lab, where they will carry out a series of experiments.
We've conducted similar experiments when Shenzhou 8 docked with the space lab, but Shenzhou 8 is an unmanned spacecraft. No astronaut is actually inside the space lab, so we need this task to test whether the conjunction can provide a comfortable living environment for astronauts.
The first docking will last 6 days. Shenzhou 9 will detach after astronauts return to the re-entry module. The spacecraft will then retreat to a distance of about 140 meters away from Tiangong 1 to prepare for the second manual docking. And this is the moment when history will be made.
If the manual docking is successful this time, our docking technology will be improved to a new level.
It's a very demanding task for the astronauts. They need to adjust the spacecraft's flying position and speed precisely. It will be all hands on deck, and they will be given guidance on operating and onboard sensor equipment. If all goes smoothly, in just 10 minutes, the 2 vehicles will be docked again.
After manual docking, astronauts need to board the Tiangong lab again. The process is the same as what they completed after the automatic docking.
Following the second docking, the astronauts are scheduled to work inside the Tiangong lab for 4 or 5 days to prepare for detaching and their return.
And joining me here in the studio are Professor John Lewis. Also, we have 2 experts from China, that's Yang Yuguang and Mr. Zhai Zheng'an here in the studio. Let's talk about the process of the rendezvous and docking. Why does it take 2 days for Shenzhou 9 to get close to Tiangong 1 in the first place?
There are many reasons. First, it is a balance between time and energy. We enter the orbit. The Shenzhou 9 spacecraft must have a similar orbital plane like the Tiangong 1 target vehicle, but usually they do not at the same position on the orbit. So it needs some time for the Shenzhou 9 spaceship to chase the Tiangong 1 target vehicle, and this need orbit with a shorter semi-major axis. This means the period is shorter, so it can run faster than the Tiangong 1 target vehicle. Another factor for this is to let the astronauts fit the weightless environment for 2 days.
So the astronauts, at least the 2 new astronauts, has to adjust to this space environment.
Yes, they will feel better. They will feel better after 2 days of flight.
How they've been doing, especially Liu Yang and Liu Wang, who is the first time in space.
Of course, when they have come into the orbit, they should check every subsystems of the Shenzhou 9 spacecraft to ensure that everything goes very smoothly.
We see on the right hand is the image taken from the re-entry capsule. Of course, 3 astronauts are already on board. Shenzhou 9, they are waiting for the final command to get close and rendezvous and dock with Tiangong 1, the target vehicle. And that will probably take place in about 30 minutes. And the astronauts were checking the final procedures until they performed that maneuver. As I just explained minutes ago, it will take about 20 to 30 minutes to get to the target vehicle Tiangong 1. They have undergoing several orbit maneuvers to get there.
Now we can see they have already passed the 140-meter parking point.
Why we decide the 4 parking pods, parking
Point.
at 5 kilometer, 140, 30, and finally have the contact? Why these 4 parking pods?
These parking points are very important. We have many sensors on board Shenzhou 9 and Tiangong 1 target vehicle. During the process of the rendezvous and docking, we should check if every subsystem is correct, and also their cooperation is also correct. And additionally, at the 400-meter parking point, we should stick out the capture ring or the docking ring of the active APAS.
Well, this is obviously the image taken by the camera outside Shenzhou 9 spacecraft.
The distance between these 2 spacecrafts is less than 5 kilometers. There are 4 checking and parking points to ensure the safety of 2 spacecrafts. They will check the speed, position, and the altitude and the altitude of 2 spacecrafts.
Well, we see on the right-hand side is Tianlian, the logo of Tianlian, which is our data communication satellite. That means this image is transmitted through your satellite.
Yes. This video comes from the Tianlian 1 satellite. The 2 spacecrafts are docking is performed in automatic mode, just as the last mission.
So this is actually programmed docking. It's just done automatically rather than handled by astronauts. John, it seems that the U.S. tend to use manual modes more, while the Russians tend to use automatic modes. What is the difference? What is behind the choice, the preferences?
To a certain extent, once a technique has been developed, you tend to stay with it. And the great success of the Soviet Union in docking the Progress modules with their space stations led them to place a high degree of reliance on automatic docking. Intrinsically, automated docking can be done with a very high degree of precision, because machinery can measure distances and angular rates and rate of approach much more accurately than the human eye can.
That why do the Russians choose to do it manually? Why do the Americans choose to do it manually?
Because it's been very successful for them.
Instead of the automatic?
Yes.
What you see on the upper right is 3 astronauts on board Shenzhou 9, and the upper left is...
Upper left is the video from the Shenzhou 9.
Well, this is the image taken by Tiangong 1 camera of Shenzhou 9 spacecraft approaching the target vehicle.
Yes.
Yes.
So this is actually the image taken from that space lab.
Yeah.
About the approaching Shenzhou 9 spacecraft, which carried, of course, 3 astronauts. And hopefully, when they dock, the astronauts will come from that vehicle we see now into the vehicle where the image is taken.
Yeah.
That is Shenzhou 9.
Yeah.
That is Tiangong 1, of course. And the 2 space vehicles are 30 meters away from another. This is going to be the final step before they contact one another.
Now the vehicle-to-vehicle data link is working.
What kind of a data transfer is now going on between the 2 vehicles?
We have relative measurements of the relative speed, relative position, and also attitude. But all these depends on the microwave radar, the laser radar, and the CCTV sensor. But both vehicles have measuring of their coordinates and others, such as the date from the inertial units and other instruments. So they can exchange their data not only the data from the CCTV sensors and the microwave and the laser readers, and other data can be transferred to each other.
Why do we need three kinds of measurements? That's laser, that's microwave, and also optic measurement.
This is a redundancy measure to ensure the safety and the reliability.
And we can see, of course, astronaut Liu Yang is holding a camera on her hand. She definitely wants to record this historic moment when she enters the space lab for the first time for Chinese astronaut and woman astronaut to do that.
Yeah. Although this time is automatic docking, but Liu Wang, who will be in charge of the manual docking, is already sit in the middle seat. And also in the manual docking later, he will also sit in this position.
It looks like it is all routine operation, but it is not, because in the history of human space flight, there were problems when docking went wrong. So what could go wrong, John?
Well, there are many possible things can go wrong. One would be a malfunction of one of the instruments that monitors your position or angle. Another possibility is a malfunction of a propulsion system. In the Gemini program, there was one case in which an attitude control thruster was turned on and would not turn off, and it was a very dangerous situation. But they were able to disable the thruster and correct the situation.
And this is the Shenzhou 9 camera taking image of Tiangong 1, and now it's the other way around. The Tiangong 1 camera taking of Shenzhou 9 spacecraft. We can see from the two camera images that they're getting very close now.
Yes.
As Mr. John said, there is some dangerous happening in the docking process, but the big difference from the last mission, we have 3 astronauts on board. If any unexpected thing happens, they can take over the control of the docking.
The astronauts can practice override and do it manually if anything wrong with the automatic procedure.
That's the beauty of having 2 alternative methods of docking.
Well, it seems they're about to dock.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, they have already docked. Tiangong 1 and Shenzhou 9, they have docked. Obviously, the astronauts should have felt the bump. But that says it has formed a combination, and the 2 spacecraft are joined in space.
The capture ring has already attached, but they need other procedures, such as forced alignment and also pulling the rings together and pulling them tightly. There are 12 hooks on both sides of the vehicle, and each can provide a pulling forces of about 3 tons. So the 12 pair of hooks can provide a pulling force of about 36 tons. It is big enough to seal the 2 vehicles very tightly.
What the astronauts are about to do right now, are they about to check the seal and electronic connection between the 2 vehicles?
This will monitor everything.
Yes, they will check the connection is firmly, and also will check the air pressure is okay, and other things.
And normally, how long does it take for the astronauts to get into the other module, that's the space lab?
Well, the docking itself has not been finished. As I have mentioned, if there is a forced alignment, it will take about 10 more minutes. If there is no forced alignment, I mean the attitude is accurate enough, it will take about 7 minutes, like the last time in Shenzhou 8 mission.
I presume this must have been done on the ground for hundreds of times. So how different is it when it is done in space from what is it on the ground? Should it be identical or should be any difference?
Yeah, they are quite different. On the ground test, we can simulate the dynamic features, we can simulate the thermal features, and we can simulate the vacuum features, but we cannot simulate all these factors together. Only in the real flight we can test these actually. So that is the reason why we need many times of docking experiments to say that we have mastered this technology.
It's put together now. I think it's
you can see the 3 guide pedals of the vehicle. We adopt an APAS or androgynous peripheral attached system.
This kind of attached system, is it also workable with other space vehicles in the future, and also space vehicles from other countries?
Theoretically, it is compatible with that onboard International Space Station, but there should be many details to be modified. For instance, such as the definition on the adapters.
And now Shenzhou 9 and Tiangong 1 has already docked, and they have formed a combination, and now they are checking everything from the CO to the electronic connection. It will probably take another 2 hours for them to make sure that everything is okay, and then they will open the hatch and enter the space lab Tiangong 1.
There are 2 rubber rings on the docking mechanism to ensure the tight connection and the air seal.
For the U.S. and Russia, how many docking drills they have to undergo before they do it for practical purposes?
I have no idea.
And
but many.
That's in 1960s and 70s.
Yes.
And when did that happen the first time for the U.S.?
Well, the first docking experiments were done during the Gemini program. An unmanned vehicle was launched to serve as a target, and then the Gemini was launched into the same orbit.
Yeah, Agena.
Yes, the Agena
upper
stage was the target for these attempts. And the procedure of stepwise approach that was used during the Gemini program is rather similar to what is being used here today. In fact, a direct ascent of the Gemini to the orbit of the target vehicle wasn't even attempted until the 12th Gemini flight.
Why is that? Why it takes the 11th Gemini? It needs a lot of practice.
You need a lot of experience to be sure that you know how to do it effectively, yes. The secret of success in this business is to be cautious.
But it only took China 1 year, 2 practices, to have a manned docking mission. What do you think of the pace?
Well, the pace is, of course, good, but it's also based on a much higher baseline of technology, and it's based upon a large body of Soviet and American experience with rendezvous techniques and docking techniques. So this is not something that is new to the universe. This is it is new hardware that has to be used
to make it faster and reliable.
Well, since it is new hardware, you have to actually do it carefully and practice to be sure that you have full confidence in the hardware and in how you're using the hardware.
Explain to us the function of docking and rendezvous and docking. Why it is essential for space station or even deeper space exploration. Why have to do that?
The idea of developing rendezvous and docking technology is to assemble large objects in space with a total mass that is too large to be lifted by any existing
It cannot
rocket.
be lifted at once.
That's right. Not only
it had to be assembled in space.
Exactly. And it's not only a matter of total mass, but it's also a matter of shape. A space station, as assembled in space, is a three-dimensional structure. It simply could not be lifted on a rocket. It's too big, too bulky. So once these techniques have been practiced, you can then use your largest available launch vehicle to lift modules
piece by piece.
Then can be assembled in space to make much larger structures.
So that's why we have to conduct docking in space, so that we can have our own space station in a few years.
Yes. Of course, our first manned docking is quite different from that of the former Soviet Union and from the United States. As Mr. Lewis has said, the Gemini 8 mission is docked by a manned spaceship and an unmanned spacecraft, and also the first manned docking of the Soviet Union.
The astronauts should have been talking about their procedures, but we don't have the audio now. What is your guess of what they're talking about?
All the checking was done by the ground control center and the 3 astronauts. They do checking at the same time. They will talk they will report what they have found to the control center. Also, control center will tell them to check something.
We have seen from the 3D animation that the engines of the Tiangong 1 laboratory is working.
So why does it need to work right at the moment?
The final force to push them together just now. Different from the Soviet Union, we will have a crew transfer channel between the two vehicles, not like the Soyuz 4 and Soyuz 5 docking mission before.
So when they joined, which vehicle is taking the charge? I mean, which vehicle is providing energy and giving command?
Tiangong 1 will be in charge of the whole combination of this docking, and also it will provide 500 watts of electric power to Shenzhou 9.
And also because the Space Lab is a larger vehicle, you should have much more room for the astronauts.
Of course, the inner volume of the inhabitable area is about 15 cubic meters,
which is larger than spacecraft.
Much larger, about double the space of Shenzhou 9 spaceship.
Because from what we've seen over the past 2 days, the 3 astronauts actually had limited room to maneuver. Especially the re-entry module is pretty cramped space.
Yeah.
In general, when a rendezvous and docking is carried out, one vehicle is a passive target. It simply holds position. The other vehicle is active and maneuvers into position. And there are actually 6 different things it has to get right before it can attach.
What are those 6 different things?
Up and down, left and right, in and out, and
because it's a 3-dimensional world.
Yeah, it means
3 more.
Attitude control.
3 more?
3 more, right.
3 more.
One is its rotation around a vertical axis.
Okay, it's rotation.
Which way it's pointing. Its rotation around a horizontal axis, whether it's nose up or nose down, and its orientation along its own long axis, its state of rotation.
So it has to have a right posture when it joined.
Nominally, this is called the pitching direction, the yawing direction, and the rolling direction.
And this is Chinese first astronaut, Yang Liwei. He is also sitting in the command center to see how his colleagues have been doing to do the first manned docking and rendezvous.
Just as Mr. Jiang said, the Shenzhou 9 is the active vehicle before docking, and Tiangong is the passive vehicle. But after docking, the Tiangong will take over control, and Tiangong will become the active vehicle.
And that's exactly the same.
What if there is a posture mistakes or something go wrong with the movement within their axis or
position?
Since they're approaching so slowly, they have plenty of time. You know, each time they stop, they check their orientation again and make sure everything is perfect. And they can do that several times as they approach. So the whole scheme is worked out to give the maximum possible flexibility in adapting to the circumstances.
And also we have reverse control thrusters. If anything wrong happened, we can withdraw our Shenzhou 9 spaceship at once. But the attitude control method of the both vehicles are quite different. On Shenzhou 9 spaceship, we only have thrusters to control the attitude, while on Tiangong 1 target vehicle, we both have thrusters to control the attitude, and also we have control moment gyroscopes.
Gyroscopes.
Yeah, control moment gyroscopes, which only use electricity to control its attitude. We have 6 control moment gyroscopes, and we only need 3, so we have a very great redundancy. And this technology is also very important for the future space station.
Well, Shenzhou 9 has already docked with Tiangong 1 successfully. That was done in an automated mode. But just now we saw the astronauts were talking to one another. We were told that the astronauts were actually mimicking a manual docking procedure, although it is done automatically.
It shows that the docking has been accomplished.
Well, there on the screen of the command room it says the docking has been a complete success. Everything goes well.
This is a very perfect docking because the requirement is very strict. The initial condition, the lateral deviation of the longitudinal axis of both vehicles should not be greater than 18 centimeters.
Thruster is fair to control the altitude and attitude.
Yes, quite right. As Mr. Zhai said, the attitude limitation in both yawing, pitching, and rolling direction should not be greater than 4 degrees in the 3 directions.
The attitude of this joint spacecraft is called reverse mode because the Tiangong is flat in the reverse direction. After that, it will take around and will go.
长城明白。天宫明白。机关。滨海。南亚。喀什。
And where the combination is in the orbit? Is it above Asia, above China, or is it elsewhere?
Well, as planned, it should be above China, but we cannot see that on the screen. The two-dimensional.
But is it in the dark or is it in the light?
It is in the light.
In the light. Because we know that actually last time there were 2 docking maneuverings in 2011. One is conducted in the dark, one is conducted in the light. Why do we need to do both scenarios?
Because we have sensors that rely on the CCTV sensors, and the sunlight will be a disturbance to these sensors. So we should test it in the amber area or the dark side to ensure the safety and reliability. When we have mastered tested the first docking, we can test if this will influence our sensors under the sunlight. So this time we have already experienced.
Well, you see on the screen 3 different picture views. On the upper right is the 3 astronauts sitting on board Shenzhou 9, and on the upper left it should be the outside view of the combination with the Earth in the background. And in the lower part, it is, of course, the animation of the joint spacecraft with Shenzhou 9 on the left and Tiangong 1 on the right, flying in combination. Well, this is the Chief Commander of China's manned space mission. General Cheng Wanquan is now overseeing the mission of China's first manned docking.
On his left is Vice Commander of Niu Hongguang of this manned space program.
The Vice Commander of the manned space mission. But they are now working on an altitude of 340 kilometers above the Earth. Here's the altitude of 35 degrees and longitude of 170 degrees.
Approaching the international date line in the center of the Pacific.
Approaching the date line in the center of the Pacific.
This is the position.
Well, this shows where the combination is. It is
above the Pacific Ocean.
Above the Pacific Ocean.
Now they will near the TTC range of Yuanwang 3.
Which is sailing in the Pacific.
Waiting for this combination.
Overseeing and monitoring the performance of.
They'll be moving into darkness.
In order to make sure the
they will be moving into the dark very soon.
In order to make missing safer.
It takes 90 minutes for any spacecraft to circle the Earth. 45 will be in the dark and 45 will be in the light.
So the successful docking means that we have mastered the technology of automatic docking in sunlight area.
So the solar panel will be working when it is in the light and produce electricity and it's stored
in the storage batteries.
In the battery.
Yeah.
Shenzhou 9号报告。Shenzhou 9号请讲。
Shenzhou 9 report.
返回舱他们接受马航线。
The door of the interrupted procedure is okay.
长程报告。请航天员根据地面指令打开返回舱舱门。
But they being under the order to open the hatch of the re-entry module. The ground staff is directing Shenzhou 9 staff to open the hatch. That means they will get into the re-entry module and probably check the pressure of both Shenzhou and Tiangong before they open the hatch between Shenzhou and Tiangong and get into the orbit.
All things have be checked is okay.
They will first.
So, yeah.
In the middle is Commander. In the middle is
Mr. Liu Wang.
Astronaut Liu Wang. On the left-hand side is Commander Ding Haifeng, and on the right-hand side is first woman astronaut Liu Yang. And we have just seen the first manned docking of Chinese spacecrafts. Shenzhou 9 have joined Tiangong 1. And the ground has already given the command to open the hatch of the re-entry module. The astronauts will probably get there and wait for a few hours before they open the hatch to another vehicle, that's Tiangong 1, the target vehicle.
We can notice that they are wearing the spacesuits to ensure the safety.
This is a replay of the whole rendezvous and docking process taken by the camera mounted on both vehicles.
The nominal relative velocity when docking should be 20 centimeters per second.
20 centimeters per second.
Yeah. It should not be too slow, because if it is too slow, the docking mechanism will not work. the latch striker cannot capture the capture latch.
So it's not as slow as possible.
Should not be so slow, and it also could not be too fast. If it's too fast, the docking mechanism will be destroyed.
That's the docking moment when the two vehicles are joined together.
And this is a benchmark used in manual docking.
But it should be used in a manual docking, but we can still see
the cross.
The cross, which is a reference for the astronauts when they handle it.
Yeah, we can see it is very accurate.
So automatic mode does work.
Yeah.
It works very well.
That shouldn't be a great surprise after Shenzhou 8.
Yeah, we did it last time.
Now the astronauts will check the pressure difference between the orbital module and the re-entry capsule.
So can we presume that is the same pressurized environments on Shenzhou 9 and Tiangong 1, or there is slight differences?
There should be slight differences, so we always need a pressure equalization valve on the hatches, both the hatches between the re-entry capsule and the orbital module, and also the outer hatch of the orbital module. And
so what if there is differences of pressure?
If there is a pressure difference, it will be very difficult to open the hatch.
Or alternatively, depending upon which direction the pressure difference goes, it could blow the hatch open violently
and destroy the hatch.
That's true.
It could be dangerous to a person who's close to it.
Because we know when the astronauts conducted China's first EVA, people were saying because of the airlock is not totally depressurized, the astronauts Tiangong had a hard time opening the hatch. It's not totally depressurized.
Right. Even a small pressure difference, when multiplied times a large area, can be a very substantial force.
The atmosphere control is always the most critical condition for life support system, so we must check it very carefully during the opening of any hatch.
Because this is the first time. This is the first time that China has actually let human beings enter a orbital module that has been working for months. We didn't know whether it is a workable, it is a nice environment, habitable environment for our astronauts or not.
We have many sensors on board Tiangong 1 tactical vehicle. We will check if it is inhabitable or not.
But still, people haven't get in there before this moment.
Yeah.
This is the first time the astronauts actually step into a space module for the Chinese.
This will be a historical moment.
During the early Soviet experiments with the Soviet space stations, they would man the space station for a period of time, then bring the crew home, and then perhaps after several months would send another crew up. And they found, much to their surprise, that the environment inside the space station changed substantially during the time it was not occupied. One problem they encountered was that they found that they were missing approximately several hundred kilograms of water. They couldn't account for where the water went.
Did they find the answer?
They found out the answer. Much of the interior structure of the space station, the Soviet space station, was made of plywood. The plywood had been kept in the desert in Kazakhstan for months before launch.
It absorbed a lot of water.
It was completely dried out in Kazakhstan. But in space, with automatic equipment keeping the humidity up to levels suitable for people, the plywood
soaked water.
Yes, and turned green.
So they changed that into another material later on.
They did indeed. Yeah.
Because we know water on board is very expensive because it takes a lot of money to transport anything into space.
Yes, as I have said, the cost of transporting 1 kilogram of payload to a space station, the cost is even more expensive than the same amount of gold. So the water recovery is quite critical and very important for the construction and long duration of manned space activities in space.
So when we will have a technology that can have a self-generating system of everything, including food, water, oxygen, everything that life support needs.
Closed ecological life support system.
But that doesn't seem to work. We have experiments of self-sustaining ecosystem on the ground, but it didn't work.
Well, we know that it works for Earth.
Not in space, at least.
It's complicated. If you try to design such a system based on fundamental scientific principles, you are likely to forget something. So you have to do it by trial and error.
Because
make your best shot.
The real world is always much more complicated
than you want it to be.
So, but for long duration space flight, maybe it's a prerequisite to have a self-generating system.
It is.
For life support. And this time around, China has its own life support system on Tiangong 1. It is a test of its own design.
We will test some of the technologies.
For example, what are they?
During the past, we used non-regenerative life support systems. But this time on Tiangong 1, we will test some of the technologies for developing the future regenerative life support system. For instance, the collection of condensation water. This is quite important. And also the oxygen making by the water electrolyzed. This will be very important. And also in the future, the production hydrogen will also be reused. But this is still not used even by the International Space Station. And also, we will test the separation between water and gases this time.
Water and gases.
Yeah.
Carbon dioxide is also a very important issue because some level of carbon dioxide is essential for your health, but too high a level of carbon dioxide can be toxic. So that carbon dioxide concentration must be managed. When it's in excess, it must be selectively removed from the atmosphere, and ideally it should be reprocessed and the oxygen extracted from it to be used for breathing. There are technologies to do this that have been tested here on the ground and been tested in aircraft.
Already is mature enough to be put into use.
It is mature enough to be flown in space, but I'm not aware of it having been done, no.
Well, the collection of carbon dioxide is used by lithium hydroxide before, like the Apollo spaceship and the Gemini spaceship. We use similar technologies in our Shenzhou spaceship, but it can used only one time. It is not regenerative. So in the future, we will develop the technology of regenerative carbon dioxide collection technology.
Right. We need life support system to keep our astronauts live and work in space. In a short while, the 3 astronauts from Shenzhou 9 will transfer over to Tiangong 1, where they will work and live for at least a short while, where they will mark China's first ever manned space docking. However, conducting this kind of operation in space is no easy task. Let's take a look how it works.
Once the rendezvous and docking are complete, astronauts will get ready to enter the orbital module just a few steps away from Tiangong 1. Their first priority will be reducing pressure in the docking track connecting the orbital module to Shenzhou 9. The passage will need to be filled with air before the astronauts make their way across.
The gas cylinder will be connected by a pipeline. Air will be pumped into the passageway if they're connected right.
Astronauts will be able to enter the docking track as long as the pressure there remains level with Shenzhou 9. The passage is a cylinder shape, which means astronauts need to remain in a horizontal position before opening the door to Tiangong 1.
The docking track is less than 1 meter wide. It will be difficult for astronauts to remain horizontal. They will need to raise their heads when attempting to open the door.
4 handles will be installed on the door of Shenzhou 9 to help make the process easier. With the door open, the crew will begin their stay in space. Once their mission is completed, the astronauts will return to Earth, but they will have to make sure the door is firmly closed on their way out.
Even a tiny particle can fly upwards under zero gravity conditions. This can affect the closing of the door. Even a strand of hair could interfere with its reliability.
The door can only be sealed tightly if it's perfectly clean, and making sure the door is secure is vitally important to ensuring the astronauts return safely back to Earth. Jiangnan CCTV.
Well, according to that film, they have to get from Shenzhou 9 into Tiangong 1 through a tunnel that is only 80 centimeters in diameter. That is a very narrow opening. If it is a fat guy, he can't get through.
Because we adopt the EPAS system, the 80 centimeter inner diameter is already very large. If we adopt the different technologies such as the non-androgynous systems, it will be more narrow. And also the advantage of the EPAS system is that because the attached system all distributed around the internal channel, it can afford larger disturbances, so it is more fit for large spacecraft.
All right, now for the latest, let's cross to our reporter Ayang, who is now at the Beijing Aerospace Command Center. Well, Ayang, can you hear me? Well, obviously Ayang is not ready at the moment. We're trying to talk to her when she is ready at the Beijing Aerospace Command Center. Let's talk a little bit more. Ayang, you can hear me. So tell us what have you heard from the command center? Because we know basically Shenzhou 9 has already joined with Tiangong 1. Did the commanders in there say anything about it? Did they announce the success?
Yes, well, we know that 20 minutes ago, Shenzhou 9 and Tiangong 1 completed their first rendezvous and automatic docking in space. And later, the passage door linking the two spacecrafts will open, and astronauts will enter the space lab in space for the very first time. Also, we know that last year, the unpiloted Shenzhou 8 also completed a rendezvous and automatic docking with Tiangong 1. But the difference is that last time the hatch doors linking the two spacecraft did not open. So although the two spacecraft were orbiting in space together, the complex wasn't exactly formed. But this time the hatch doors will soon open and a true complex will form. And Tiangong 1 and Shenzhou 9 will orbit in space as one. And if everything goes to plan, by 17 p.m. The first astronaut will enter the space lab, and I will be here to bring you the latest. So yeah.
As we know, Tiangong has been orbiting the Earth for more than 100 days, and it is the first time it welcomed an astronaut in space. So what is going to be the mission of the astronauts when they board Tiangong 1?
Well, Tiangong 1 has been orbiting around the Earth for about more than 250 days, if I do remember it correctly. And also, it is designed to accommodate 3 astronauts for a maximum of 20 days, although this time the astronauts will only stay there for 10 days doing a series of experiments and medical researches. Just incidentally, when the astronauts later enter the space lab, they will not wear their astronaut suits. They will actually wear thermal underwear and socks, and these daily necessities have been sent up into space as the Tiangong 1 was launched last year. And while they were there for the following days, they will conduct a series of medical researches as well as other scientific researches. For example, the astronauts, they will monitor their health conditions, they will monitor their mood and other biological changes, as well as some technological experiments. And these experiments are vital to set a solid base for future long-duration sports explorations, because China is also trying to build its own space station by or later than 2020, and these experiments are very vital for the future process. So yeah.
And we haven't heard from the astronauts for quite some while. Do you happen to know what condition they are in? Are they mentally and physically fit right now?
Well, so yeah, I don't know if you can see through my camera. The three astronauts are actually in very good condition right now. They are quite stable and they are still in their cabin. And just about 10 to 20 minutes ago, I'm not sure whether you've seen it on the screen. Actually, the astronaut Liu Yang was saying she was very happy and she was holding a small DV camera and trying to film everyone in the cabin. And Commander Jing Hanpeng and Liu Wang, they waved in front of the DV camera, and Liu Yang was talking to them very happily. At present, they are still in the cabin and they are probably doing preparations for the future, for the 17 o'clock lab entrance. Back to you, Zoya.
All right, thank you, Yang, for your reporting from the Ground Control Center in Beijing. Well, Yang mentioned that it seems that China's first woman astronaut is in good shape, although from what we've seen, it seems that her face is a little bit swollen. So
this is a very normal phenomenon because in weightless environment, the blood will turn from your legs to your head. So it is very normal.
So the fluid circulation will change a little bit. That's something that the astronaut have to adjust to.
One of the interesting results of having your blood redistribute in unfamiliar ways is that your sensations of hot and cold can be altered by the blood's in a different place. And notice they're wearing thermal underwear. The temperature in there may be perfectly normal, but their body is experiencing a redistribution of blood which causes them to have sensations of hot and cold that really don't have anything to do with the outside world.
So in such occasion, then experiences sometimes help a lot, because Jing Haipeng once were in space several years ago. We were told that he is the one that better adjusted to this mission than the other two, because experience kicked in.
Yeah, this is very helpful if anything wrong happened, because when the two new crew come into space, they may feel very uncomfortable. But this is very normal. But their mission will not be disturbed, because Jing Haipeng is experienced and he will be adapted to the environment very fast. And also this time, the astronauts will be more comfortable than the former missions, because we have a space kitchen and a space hospital on board Shenzhou 9.
You mean a mini kitchen and
of course. The China Aerospace produce the space kitchen is a heater. It uses electricity, and the astronauts can eat delicious food by heating in it. And you know that in microgravity environment, the heating process is quite different from that on the ground. So the physical procedure is quite different. So it is a high technology product.
Did they use microwave oven?
Maybe.
Because I don't know. For Chinese, it's very important to eat some hot food. It's maybe some Westerners don't understand this, but Chinese do prefer hot food.
Especially astronauts who had to eat cold, dry food for a while. They really understand.
Why do they have to eat cold, dried, dehydrated, irradiated food all the time?
Oh, they don't. They eat reconstituted and heated, cooked food traditionally. However, back in the early days of spaceflight, when they were flying in small capsules, they couldn't afford the luxury of having microwave ovens and special food preparation facilities. So they ate these boring things.
There is an interesting story that the first Chinese American astronaut, Mr. Wang Ganjin, when he comes into space in space shuttle, he complained about the water because he wants to have a cup of tea, while the water is not hot enough.
Well, this is interesting because you have the luxury now to have hot water and hot food. Well, from unmanned flights to manned missions, from spacewalking to space docking, China's Shenzhou space program has made breakthroughs one after another since the first launch of Shenzhou 1 back in 1999. And now let's look back at this process, the historic space program.
November 20th, 1999, a date that echoed through history. Shenzhou 1, the spearhead of China's manned spaceflight program, took off into the skies from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. Shenzhou 1 was designed to test out various technical mechanisms such as life support and rocket thrusters. The success of those tests paved the way for Shenzhou 2 to 4. They focus on fine-tuning the life support and safety systems. Then on October 15, 2003, Shenzhou 5 was launched. It was truly a great leap forward for the Chinese space program. Yang Liwei became the first Chinese astronaut in space, fulfilling the age-old Chinese dream of venturing into the heavens. The launch announced China's arrival as one of only 3 countries with the capability to conduct manned space missions. Shenzhou 6 and 7 quickly followed. Hundreds of millions of Chinese rejoiced as Zhai Zhigang became the first Chinese astronaut to walk in space during the flight of Shenzhou 7. A tough new challenge awaited China's space program on September 29, 2011, with the launching of Tiangong 1, an orbital space module that would form the foundation of a Chinese space station. But all went according to plan, and just 2 months later, Shenzhou 8 successfully rendezvoused and docked with the space module. China became the 3rd country to demonstrate space docking capability. In a few days' time, Tiangong 1 will welcome its first astronauts. China is about to enter the space station era. Stanley Lee, CCTV.
The Shenzhou 9 space mission will be China's first manned space docking mission, and 3 astronauts will be on board very soon to carry out their docking between Shenzhou 9 spacecraft and orbiting Tiangong 1 space lab. Our reporter Li Qiuyuan recently takes a look at the spacecraft and had this report.
A flight to outer space might not be comfortable, but the Shenzhou 9 spacecraft awaited for blastoff might be an exception.
You're now watching the Shenzhou 9 spacecraft being transported to the vertical assembly building for the final assembly. And for this mission, 3 astronauts will be on board. They will be staying in the spacecraft for 13 days. This is the first time Chinese astronauts are staying in spacecraft for so many days, so engineers are trying to do whatever they can to make this trip more manageable and more comfortable.
More manageable, as in several modifications have been made to prepare the Shenzhou 9 spacecraft for the manned docking mission.
The main modifications have been made to the orbital module. The docking facility was added to its top. A front module gate was also installed to help transfer objects to target aircraft, creating an active channel for assembling units. Many other facilities for interactive docking, like sensors, were installed to help observe and transmit the condition of target aircraft. For Shenzhou 9, a special touchscreen was set up to help control the aircraft for completion of the manual docking mission.
More comfortable, as the interior layout of the spacecraft have been greatly improved.
Compared to the old design, this new spacecraft is more spacious. It's more delicate in terms of interior decoration and layout. Other necessary facilities are also provided to cater to the needs of astronauts in space.
The upgraded Shenzhou 9 spacecraft will keep the 3-compartment design as the previous versions of the Shenzhou vehicles, having an orbital module, a re-entry capsule, and also a service module. The spacecraft will also have 14 subsystems, from basic life support system to advanced GNC system for the docking mission.
The docking facility is one of the most important subsystems. It helps to create a closed channel for combining aircraft units. It's where the astronauts will be passing through to reach space, and this function is combined with all the subsystems.
The Shenzhou 9 spacecraft will carry out China's first manual docking mission with the orbiting Tiangong 1 Space Lab module, marking another breakthrough in the history of China's space exploration. Li Qiuyuan, CCTV, Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center.
So it is a combination now, and the 3 astronauts will enter Tiangong 1 and live there and work there for another 14 days. It's the first time that the Chinese astronauts has been living in space for such a long duration. What kind of challenges will be there for them?
It is a great challenge. The longest mission we have experienced is Shenzhou 6. At that mission, Mr. Fei Jinlong and Nie Haisheng stayed in the space for about 105 hours, nearly 5 days. But this time, they will stay in space for about 13 days, 10 in Tiangong 1 type vehicle. And of course, the loss of bones and the influence of the weightless environment to the cardiovascular system and also to the muscles should be specially treated. They should have exercise every day. There is a treadmill or exercise chair on board, so they can run, they can ride bicycle to keep the muscles strong.
What is your take on their living environment, the Tiangong 1? Of course, it's not as spacious as International Space Station, but as an improvement from the Shenzhou spacecraft.
After riding into space in a small, cramped capsule,
they will find it a relief to enter into a bigger place.
Elbow room, room to expand, to move around. People need to flex their bodies. They need to be able to extend their arms and legs and move about, and they will have that ability.
I wonder whether there will be psychological problems for the astronauts living in a cramped place like the space module for a long time.
I don't think so. No, it's not that common.
Because they just cannot open the window and jump off if they don't feel comfortable.
People who have claustrophobia do not become astronauts in the first place.
We have lessons.
They're being tested on that.
We have lessons before. During the Salute 7 missions, the longest duration is 237 days. Because the cosmonauts do not have adequate exercise there, when they come back to the Earth, it takes a very long period for them to become a normal condition. Well, in the Mir missions, the longest duration, the record is about 437 days. Well, they come back to the Earth, they don't feel much uncomfortableness.
Let's talk about their work and life in Tiangong. What's going to be the life like? They sleep as we do on the ground, they eat as we do on the ground?
Well, they will use the Beijing time for their schedules. And of course, they will have about 7 hours of sleeping time, and they have
7 hours.
7 hours, and they will have several hours for rest. I heard from the introduction of Ms. Liu Yang, they will have a notebook PC on board, so they can listen to the music.
It's her own personal computer.
Not her personal, but be used by both the 3 astronauts. They have loaded some music and some movies in the computer.
I hope they will have some time to enjoy that and also make a successful mission this time when they board Tiangong 1. You are now watching a special program on CCTV News about China's first manned docking mission. Our program will be back in about 2 hours, so stay tuned with us.
这个中国人民也扬眉吐气了。随着这个中国经济的发展，国民的素质也增强了，国家科技也提高了，是中国人呢在世界上呢也就是说站得更高了。
这次神舟9号是第一次有女宇航员上太空，我们觉得很期待，就很期待看到他们在太空生活的情景，也希望他们这一次太空之旅能够平安顺利。
祝贺咱们就是呢，咱们神9，然后就祝贺他们能顺利的就是升天，然后祝贺咱们那个航天女英雄，然后能那个展翅蓝天。就是
神9要发射了，那我作为一名大学生，我感到非常的自豪。首先是可以说明我们的国家的科技实力正在不断的增强，再就是我们国家的经济实力和国防的能力也在不断的增强。
我特别希望咱们神9能发射成功，还走向一个富强的一个国家，这是一个标志性的一个东西。
希望神9发射成功，然后祝福航天员们。